Chapter 2. Why does pain and suffering exist? A deep challenge for any spirit who comes into this physical realm is understanding the experience of pain and suffering. As infinite loving beings who come from a place of only love, adapting to pain and witnessing suffering can be quite a shock, especially given the current traumatic state of humanity. Oftentimes, children do not understand why someone is suffering or why we don't help all people, because young kids are still very linked to their loving spiritual nature, and they know that we are supposed to love and support all living beings. Instead, they have entered a world with lots of people who are not cared for, not to mention the uncaring ways we treat this earth and all other beings who live here. Furthermore, everywhere we look, there are people who are struggling because their basic needs are not being met, and there is so much trauma, hatred, and inequality everywhere. Essentially, we have entered a world that is deeply lost and very deficient in love. How do you help an innocent and loving child understand the intense situation that they have entered into and explain why we aren't caring for everyone around us? How do we explain to them why pain exists as part of being human? Pain is a unique part of being embodied, something that is unavoidable no matter what. On a basic level, it would seem that the creation of pain makes no sense, especially because it was created by an all-loving divine force that loves us dearly. Why then would this infinite loving force create something that is destined to hurt us? Why not create the perfect world where pain and suffering never exist? These types of questions are very reasonable to ask, and talking about such challenging topics is part of building a healthy spirituality. The first thing to be aware of when we investigate pain is the fact that we are looking at it from our limited human perspective. We have all signed up to have our infinite spiritual awareness restricted and even blocked as part of coming down to this world. And what this does is limit us from connecting to the big picture that is part of this realm. This is not to excuse the unnecessary pain and suffering that we are causing each other, which we are going to discuss later. Rather, being clear on how we are restricted from knowing bigger truths is a very key part of exploring this topic. Beyond this, it's important to place the idea of pain within the context of an all-loving, all-knowing divine being that created it, a conscious entity that only acts from a place of love and would never do anything to harm us in any way. Furthermore, we have to give credit to the fact that we are infinite beings who ultimately cannot be hurt. When we look at pain through these lenses, what awareness do we gain beyond the way pain makes us feel in the moment? As we discussed above, being infinite spiritual beings who come from a place of unconditional love with access to infinite awareness, we decide to come to this physical reality as an exercise of deepening our relationship to love and to have a spiritual experience through the body. This is similar to the ways that we intentionally decide to challenge ourselves in our day-to-day human lives, whether by training for a marathon or deliberately going through a challenging healing ceremony like a vision quest. As part of this intention to come to Earth, we know what we are getting ourselves into because we design a life plan that includes many painful and challenging things that will happen to us. These painful experiences are meant to deepen us and help us grow. This brings us to the first reason why pain exists, as a catalyst for growth and deepening. Pain is a powerful tool that we cannot ignore no matter how much we try to, and it is designed this way. Even with the invention of incredibly strong pain medications, pain always seems to find a way to get our attention until its job has been completed. This is because pain is a helpful force that is meant to break down elements of ourselves, like certain belief systems, identities, or aspects of our ego, and help bring about new versions of who we are. Also, pain is meant to break down parts of our lives, pieces that aren't serving us, that we can be free of them and create something better. Last, pain is meant to bring about new awareness, depth, and understanding about a lot of things, helping us to become deeper, more thoughtful, conscious versions of ourselves. Being pushed to change is no easy task, as many of us are deathly afraid of change and would rather stay within ideas and a routine that we already know, even if it's no longer serving us, than go out into the unknown. Additionally, we all live in a society that strives to be in comfort at all times, thereby teaching us that comfort is good and pain is bad. With this idea in place, we tend not to have enough practice looking at pain as a helpful force, and thus have little tolerance for experiencing it and using it to our advantage. Because of these types of belief systems, we tend to resist pain when it shows up, extending the time it would take for it to change us, which only increases the amount of suffering we have to experience. On the flip end, some of us have normalized pain due to our struggles and trauma, or because we use pain as a motivating force. Because of this, we end up tolerating way too much of it before it grabs our attention. However, eventually, pain pushes us to places that we never thought we would go. And in doing this, we end up having new thoughts, ideas, and feelings that we never would have imagined to be possible. Some of these thoughts and feelings can be very scary, like no longer wanting to be alive, while others open us up to new ideas, like ending a marriage or deciding to finally take the risk of pursuing your actual dreams. But depending on how locked up we are in certain ideas, beliefs, or identities, breaking through these things can require some extreme moments of pain and suffering. Take, for example, someone who has been raised with the belief that one should never get divorced and marriage is for life, yet they find themselves in a marriage that is making them miserable. And no matter what they try to do to make it better, it only seems to get worse. Finally, one day, they wake up and don't even recognize themselves anymore. They feel depressed and angry, and they hate themselves and their life. They find themselves self-medicating a lot with alcohol and marijuana, and they start having thoughts of no longer wanting to exist. But they see some of their friends enjoying their life, partners and careers. After talking with a therapist, they finally decide to leave their marriage. This is a deeply courageous act, one that takes a long time and a lot of pain to accomplish. This is because they were taught a belief system that locked them into a dynamic that didn't serve their highest good. And in trying to go against this, they bumped up against feelings of judgment, guilt, and shame. However, conversations with their therapist about these feelings allowed them the help they truly needed to move beyond their current setup. Once a shift or change happens to us, and we move through this transition, we gain access to life lessons that we can use to better our life in the future. We can also be changed as people, becoming more aware and empathetic of others who have gone through similar things. These are some of the ways that pain is a catalyst for growth and deepening. The second reason why pain exists is as a teacher and guide. Think of all the ways that pain gives you information about the world around you, such as when you touch a hot stove and burn your hand. Notice how pain speaks to you about what is going on in the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual parts of your body, telling you when something is wrong or doesn't feel right. Pain talks to us about so many different aspects of our lives and tends to carry important messages that it wants us to pay attention to. It is only in giving pain credit as a helpful force that we can be open enough to hear these messages and guidance. From the moment we become human, pain is here to help us understand life's boundaries and limitations. No longer are we infinite beings who never have to worry about anything. We are now physical beings who are limited in many ways. When we fall down and scrape our knees or cut ourselves on something sharp, we are in a process of learning what it means to inhabit this physical body and exist in this physical world. The pain that shows up in each of these events is meant to help us get clarity on what we can and cannot do so that we can learn how to maneuver through our lives in healthy ways. Pain is also here to give us information about our bodies. When we have physical pain, often it is an indicator that something is wrong or not working for us or that we need something. For example, more and more people are coming to my practice suffering from neck and low back pain. When I ask them about their daily routines and if they are getting enough exercise, many respond that their job requires them to be in front of the computer for 8 to 10 hours each day. For them, their physical pain is arising as a messenger from the body, telling them that their body needs more exercise and movement. When they create the time to provide this for themselves, often the pain disappears. Another example is noticing how pain walks us through a journey of healing. When someone breaks their arm, the initial event is extremely painful, letting the person know that something is not right. Once their arm is set in a cast, the pain might subside a little as long as the person is resting this area of the body. But when the cast comes off and the person begins to use the arm again, pain can come back for different reasons. First, this area may be in need of stretching, movement, and strengthening. And until it can return to its normal function, pain is there letting the person know that these things are still needed. Second, pain can show up as an indicator of limitation for this part of the body, telling the person to go easy and slow at first because the arm is still not at full strength and needs healing. Notice how, in this type of process, pain is there as a helpful servant of the body, telling us what is happening and what is needed as we heal. On an emotional level, pain arises for similar reasons. When something is wrong, when something isn't working for us, or when we need something. For example, when we are in a relationship with someone where our emotional needs are unmet, pain can show up as an indicator that we are in need. Pain can also arise as information about certain interactions. For instance, when we are dealing with someone who is acting passive-aggressive and saying hurtful or unkind things to us, we may start to feel bad in our body, which lets us know that something is wrong with the interaction. Third, pain can arise as an indicator of unresolved feelings and trauma. The body is very good at keeping track of the parts of us that are still in need of healing. And even when years and decades have gone by since a hurtful event occurred, the body will let us know through indicators like anxiety, depression, and anger that something still needs tending to. The same can be said about how pain operates in the mental body through thoughts, beliefs, and voices in our heads. Many of us suffer from very painful thinking about ourselves, other people, and the world. Furthermore, we can struggle with projections of the future that aren't good, leaving us feeling scared, anxious, and upset in our bodies. The painful thoughts in our heads are often a reflection of an emotional experience we've already been through or emotional needs that are unmet. Looking at our mentality through this lens can help us gain clarity on what we need in each moment to feel better. Finally, we all have spiritual needs, aspects of ourselves that need to be connected to something bigger and to live a life full of purpose and love. Thus, pain can arise when our spiritual needs are unmet and we are in need of something deeper in our lives. Pain is a powerful teacher and guide that is always trying to help us see relevant and important information. If we listen to it and give it full credit, we can create an advantageous relationship with pain that can help us evolve into healthy, conscious versions of ourselves. The third reason why pain exists is to help us open our hearts. This is a counterintuitive quality of pain, a softening and humbling effect that happens to us when we experience enough of it. This heart-opening effect can happen in many different ways, whether from witnessing others go through painful experiences, causing pain to others, or going through our own personal pain, to name just a few. In any case, as we go through these challenging times, we inevitably change, ideally becoming a more thoughtful, caring version of ourselves. When we think of pain, we don't often think of how it can soften us and open our hearts. This makes sense given that pain tends to cause us to hurt, and in the moment, it's hard to see how this can be beneficial. However, when we experience pain, we tend to be able to relate better to other people's pain, which can increase our ability to have empathy and be caring towards others. Furthermore, this helps us build deeper, more meaningful connections, ones that are based on honest conversations and vulnerability. Pain has the ability to help us bond with others who can relate to a particular experience, helping to validate our own feelings and get meaningful support in order to heal. When we go through very humbling experiences that force us to dig deep for strength and courage, We come out of these life moments much softer than we were before. This is because certain egoic ideas and assumptions about who we are as people can be directly challenged, and things we were unconscious of can come to light. For example, if you grew up with financial privilege and never had to worry about money, you might be under the impression that people with money have worked hard for it while others who don't have it are lazy. However, one day you lose your job and struggle for months to find another one. Eventually, you are forced to take a job working as a waiter just to pay your bills, a job that you never imagined yourself doing. However, in going through this experience and building good relationships with the people you work with, you realize that there are hardworking people everywhere, and a lot of different factors play into why they don't make as much money as you did initially. You finally get a job a year later that pays you the money you are used to, but being back in this position, you are a changed person, now softer and more aware. The fourth reason why pain exists is because there's too much trauma currently in this world. As far back as we go, humans have a history of harming one another in different ways, causing trauma to one group or another. However, since the domination of Western civilization and the spread of racism, capitalism, and fear-based Christian ideologies, mixed with genocidal actions in the name of progress and colonization, we turn an unfortunate corner regarding the level of trauma we have created and the imbalances that now exist in our culture and this world. Not only have we become trapped in unhealthy ideas that give value to superficial things that don't meet our needs, but we also have not created opportunities for all people to heal. Add to this our greedy and destructive approach to the earth and all that live here, and we have a level of trauma that we have never experienced before. One of the first layers of this pain comes from the incredible harm that our European ancestors caused to so many indigenous and non-white people. The egoic and racist beliefs that they had about their own superiority and the superiority of their culture compared to non-white, non-European people gave them a reason to conquer these less than evolved humans and take all they had for themselves. Furthermore, it gave them a reason to enslave and exterminate so many different types of people because they viewed them as subhuman species that were less valuable than themselves and stuck in the dark ages of evolution. Some of these beliefs were so racist and ridiculous that at one time some Europeans believed that if a person of color was taken from their place of birth, given a European education and introduced into European society, their skin color would slowly evolve from dark to white. As part of their strategy of destroying indigenous societies, our European ancestors banned non-Christian practices and beliefs, many of which had been used for thousands of years to keep a community functioning in healthy ways, to heal, and to stay connected to the natural and spiritual world. The belief that Christianity was the superior religion and that its purpose was to save all people gave a reason for violently and forcibly destroying societies and communities. Not only did all this cause tremendous trauma, which has been passed through the generations, but it also harmed and suppressed many wonderful and powerful ancient traditions and beliefs, ones rooted in deep, loving wisdom, many of which have been forgotten permanently. This shameful mistreatment of people may seem like a story from the past, but it's still happening today, not just here, but across the world. The foundation of our Western culture was built on inequality, racism, and discrimination, and taking advantage of people. Until we are willing to honestly face what our ancestors did and how we are participants in an unjust system, we won't be able to heal these wounds. More resources, opportunities, and support need to be given to underserved, non-white communities so that they can actually heal in the ways that are needed. Beyond this, resources, opportunities, and support need to be given to all people for healing so that we can be a much better version of ourselves. The second layer of pain comes from the greed of capitalism and the ways that it places value on superficial things, while at the same time actively destroying people, communities in this world. Capitalism is an unsustainable and deeply unfair system that is purely designed to give a small group of people and countries unlimited power and resources while everyone else has a less than quality life. It is a rat race that creates deep stress, pain, and disconnection for all of us in so many ways, as well as a deep fear of not having enough to survive. This has the effect of pitting humans against each other, fighting over the limited resources that we have access to, which results in hoarding what we have and not wanting to share it with people who need it. Instead of taking care of each other, especially those who are less privileged, we have been taught that people who have all the money and resources are more valuable and important than everyone else. This selfish mindset also extends to our relationship with the earth. It has convinced people who have power, corporations, and countries that destroying her and pillaging all of her resources is not only our human right, but is worth doing for the sake of progress. This idea is a sickness because it places unfair value on human life compared to all other life and makes us forget how important our relationship is with the earth. We seem convinced as this planet gets destroyed that somehow we will be okay. All of these unhealthy ideas have created much pain and suffering for everyone, including the plants and animals that coexist here with us. This pain comes not just from the struggle to make ends meet, but also because it has led us to no longer having our deepest, most important needs met. These needs include being part of a healthy community, having loving and caring relationships with others, giving back to people who need it, connecting to nature, connecting to the loving spiritual place we come from. Furthermore, witnessing all the pain and suffering around us negatively impacts us, whether we realize it or not. The third reason why there's too much pain in this world is due to the destruction of our community. As I mentioned above, capitalistic ideas have led us to compete against each other for limited resources, creating a system that is not designed for connection or care, but only for competition. Add to this our deeply held racist beliefs and the way we discriminate against certain groups of people, another system that encourages disconnection and blinds people to the fact that we are all human. Last, add the immense value we have created around our independence and the idea of not having to rely on others. And you have a perfect recipe that destroys our ability to remember the truth that we require deep, loving connection with a lot of different people. Being in healthy community is one of our most foundational emotional requirements, something that will be discussed more in this book. Being in a healthy community with others helps us to feel safe, emotionally and physically. It gives us a sense of purpose. We have access to help when we need it, and it empowers us to be a good version of ourselves. Furthermore, we learn how to think and care for others because we can see more clearly that when our community is healthy, we all benefit. People who have access to this type of support tend to be mentally, emotionally, and physically healthier, something that research is now showing. For example, scientific studies have found clear evidence of the detrimental health consequences of loneliness, and the Surgeon General came out in 2023 calling loneliness an epidemic. Extensive scientific findings from a variety of disciplines, including epidemiology, neuroscience, medicine, psychology, and sociology, converge on the same conclusion. Social connection is a significant predictor of longevity and better physical, cognitive, and mental health, while social isolation and loneliness are significant predictors of premature death and poor health. More recent estimates based on synthesizing data across 148 studies with an average of 7.5 years of follow-up suggest that social connection increases the odds of survival by 50%. Indeed, the effects of social connection, isolation, and loneliness on mortality are comparable and in some cases greater than those of many other risk factors, including lifestyle factors like smoking, alcohol consumption, physical inactivity. Traditional clinical risk factors like high blood pressure, body mass index, cholesterol levels, environmental factors like air pollution, and clinical interventions like flu vaccines, high blood pressure medications, rehabilitation. The power of being in a healthy community and its positive effects on us are immense. However, most people in America don't have this, or if they do live in close contact with others, it often requires them to be a different version of themselves in order to fit in. We have become more and more isolated as a country, trapped in our addictions to work, social media, and technology, and stuck in our beliefs that we are different from so many of the people around us, when in fact it is the exact opposite. In our pursuit for money, power, and independence, we've arrived at emptiness, loneliness, and pain. The only remedy for this is to start turning towards each other with love and care and start creating deeper, more meaningful connections. The final reason why pain and suffering exists is that we are very powerful beings who are still very young on our evolutionary journey. Homo sapiens have only been on this planet for around 300,000 years, which may seem like a long time, but isn't. For perspective, dinosaurs existed for about 165 million years. And in this short amount of time, we have done incredible transformative things, as well as extremely destructive things. Our species has access to immense energetic abilities that allow us to bring into existence anything we can dream up in our minds. Combine this with our access to conscious awareness about ourselves, the spirit world, and the universe, and you have a dynamic that is full of unlimited potential. This has led to astonishing developments like landing people on the moon, developing math equations that explain how the universe works, and creating technologies that allow us to talk to one another in real time across the world. However, this type of power is also very addictive, and we can lose ourselves in it. This is where we find ourselves now, consumed by our abilities to create, which has in turn distorted our thinking about what our skill sets are actually meant for, and created an illusion that in becoming as powerful as we possibly can, we will somehow feel good. This had led us to fall for a classic trap, being drawn to something that looks good on the surface, but has no deep meaning or value in the end. Power is like this. Without using it to make everyone's lives better, it ends up making us feel like shit, and we suffer. It's only in healing and growing that we can regain the clarity that our gifts are meant to enhance everyone's lives around us and the world. In many ways, where we are stuck now is a symptom of our immaturity, and we need more time to make mistakes and grow. However, at our current rate of destruction, time may not be on our side for much longer. There's a very real possibility that we will ultimately destroy ourselves, but there's also a very real chance that we will awaken back to love. The clarity that loving others is the only way to live is a symptom of maturity, and there are a lot of people on this planet right now who are creating opportunities to help people heal and wake up back to this awareness. As Ben Parker says in Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. And this happens to be a great piece of advice for the human species. Until we can learn how to utilize our power for good, we will keep adding unneeded pain into this world.